Hello.
Hello, I'm sorry I missed your call. I know it was only a minute ago.
Sorry, you're good.
Thank you for letting me use your old Facebook, by the way.
Make sure you, I mean, you know what I mean. Just make sure you let people know you're using it. You're using it with permission and all.
I have been.
Okay?
I make sure
Glad it's
people
opening up.
don't know it's
Maybe
you, although I don't think they're going to confuse my bearded face with being you.
they're going to want to change the name back. That's what their big thing is. Not having the same name on your title, and I don't know.
Yeah, they want it to be Christine. I noticed it was
But,
changed a little bit. Instead of SSHHAAWWNN, it's SHAWN now.
oh, okay.
I don't know who did that.
I don't think I did. That's weird.
Yeah, you know,
I'm pretty sure if I did that, we would have communicated about it.
yes, ma'am.
Huh. We.
Yep. I don't know
I'm
what's going
somewhat
on with all of
surprised
it.
by this. I'm not surprised by that stuff anymore. Like,
Well, that's the
I
problem
used
with
to.
me is that most of these people I've been out of contact with, all of these web sleuths and their craziness and assaults and taking away my technology and putting me on Facebook ban, and either I'm on Facebook ban or I'm locked up or something like that, you know? I mean, ever since Natalie died, everything that I'd busted my ass for, I got robbed from me. Well, starting before Natalie died, Ken and Leah ripped me off for a lot.
As a new?
Ken and Leah.
Oh, I don't know them, huh?
A lot of people called Ken Throat Tattoo.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, the worst thing about Natalie was that her predators came after me. Her predators threatened me, and I
Yeah.
told them to come through. I let them know I wasn't afraid. They were offering me exactly what I wanted, an end to my pain. I wanted to be able to see you, and I wanted to be able to see Rabbit, and I wanted to be able to see Mobley and Ogre and Mandy, and I couldn't see any of you guys because every time I did, I had to go searching for you through the whole town, and that whole town is full of meth heads.
Yeah,
Like the
I was
cops
up in
keep
Netherlands
arresting.
while I visited.
Do what?
I was up in Netherlands the whole time when I visited. I only hit town like 2 or 3 times, and it was bad. I was scared.
Yes, ma'am. See, that's what happens. The border police they leave all the meth heads out, but they go and they arrest homeless people because they're easy. You know?
Well, as long as they leave the meth heads out, then the city has something to fight against. If that's what they let the public look at, that's what they think homelessness is.
Yep, indeed.
I guess that's kind of what it is now, really.
It's revenue. That's why they go after people who they consider mentally ill, people who are homeless, basically people who grew up in the system. They go after minorities because they already know what a jury's going to think. They're automatically going to go, oh, well, you know, there's black on black crime, so these black people are this, black people are that, and they have that bias in their head whether they admit it or not. I can see by most of these people's actions that they're exactly the things that they pretend like they hate.
you know,
The things that Natalie's family did to me in Virginia alone was bad enough. Like when I left Virginia, I needed to be left alone. I needed to be able to go back to Boulder and see my friends and family and heal up. That was an emotional friggin' wreck, you know? I mean, it wasn't just what was going on there. It was also the fact that all of the people that I cared about the most were out of my life at that point.
I know how painful that is. I mean, I don't know, your situation, but I know how close our family is on the street. Even if we don't get along on the street, at least we have the camaraderie of you're homeless and I'm homeless.
There
That
is
is
that.
bad.
There are a lot of homeless
And
people that I didn't get along with that when they needed help, they got it. And when I needed
exactly.
help, I got it.
Exactly. I said a homeless person, even if they don't like you, dude, they're more apt to help you out than normal people.
There's no such thing as normal people, but yeah, I get what you're
So,
saying. I prefer to call them housies. I noticed that there's
how
two major groups here. There's there's the group of people that are trying to help me. Most of them are too broke to help. They know what it's like to be at the bottom. They know what it's like to be falsely accused. They know what the police do when you're homeless or considered mentally ill, or they know what happens when you're autistic. And a lot of these people are the parents of autistic kids, so they obviously aren't going to have money. I don't know if you are aware of how much more expensive an autistic kid is, but it's expensive.
I've seen a few children, my friends that are autistic. I don't know much about that, but I can imagine different stimuli.
Well, it's a pretty world, and people pay for pretty. I was noticing that the people that are trying to help me out, um, the ones that look like supermodels are usually liars,
You know,
and they're usually not the person they're pretending to be. They're spying. And then the ones that are on the side of Natalie's family, they don't care that Natalie's family neglected her or that her father raped her. They don't care about any of that stuff. They just want someone to blame that they can get away with. And that's the thing.
and
I
put it
don't
out
have
of
a
their head
family.
like it didn't happen, like it
Yeah,
couldn't happen.
that's how most people are. I mean, my best friend in high school, his name was Brandon Jepson. And that guy is so ignorant of the ways of the world when it comes to people who actually know the struggle. But he's never had the struggle. He was never homeless, trying to get off the streets with, oh my God, like people don't even know. Just the blanket law alone, you know? I mean, when I passed out blankets, I walked around every morning so the people who might have those blankets didn't end up getting busted with them.
Yeah, those days are long gone, my friend.
Yeah,
I know there won't be any of that in Boulder anymore.
no, they're trying to stuff all the homeless people in jails and prisons. It's good revenue. They're doing the same thing that the Nazis did. Forced labor camps. The difference is that they don't have to force people to labor. They can just lock them up until they go crazy and force the poor people to do that labor. I mean, who's
Yep,
paying for all this stuff? The taxpayers.
they'll do it happily if they see what they want to see.
I noticed that when we had the kitchen camps, we could get a lot of homeless people up there, and a lot of them would work, and a lot of them would contribute. And
Yeah, Becky just quit. Becky quit feeding.
yeah, what happened there?
Well, I talked to her because I went out to Boulder for 2 weeks, and I just got back a couple weeks ago, and I'm leaving again on the first. I'm going back to help
Yeah, I didn't get to
her.
see her last time I was in Boulder, but go ahead. What happened?
When I got to sit with her, she had enough. Um, I didn't. Basically, I think she's just feeding the tweakers, and they didn't pitch in the way she wanted to, and she just broke. She got too tired. She got too fed up. She decided to take care of herself. Um, I got to help her pull together. I didn't hang out for it, but I got to sit and talk with her a little bit. Just really, same kind of feeling. She's fed up with family not coming together and supporting each other, and she just quit.
You know when I noticed all that fell apart? I blame the whole situation on Starbucks. I mean, Roberta Richards made it safe for myself and like two other homeless people who really went around and kept it clean down there. And like with the number of people who told me I was the only person holding them together there, it makes sense. Because as soon as I left, like when I left Boulder, I left for 3 months. I went up to Montana to get all my teeth yanked, and I was only supposed to be gone for a month. all of the places where I went and picked up trash, I went back to those places. They all had signs saying no trespassing because nobody was picking up the trash. And when I run around downtown, it was mostly tweakers because they were being ignored while anybody else who was homeless who sat down there got a ticket and got hauled off to jail. And I talked to a lot of the business owners, and most of them said, "Well, it's mostly high school kids that are doing it, you know, and that's why we got those trespassing signs." And I'd walk by and I'd see the cops ignoring high school kids sitting there throwing their garbage on the ground in front of the cops. Like it was a messed up situation. Now the
Florida's tough. Florida's real tough now. I say goodbye to the few. Like, I have a few friends on the street that I'll consider friends for life, whether they're high or not. But I came to a quick conclusion that, unfortunately, those friendships had to end anyway because I can't visit them. I can't be associated with them. I can't just be hanging out with them and have a cop come around and pop them. I can't. So I took Camacho up to Bridget's with me because I knew Mobley was going to be there. It's a shame I had to go get Camacho to walk with me around Mobley. Like, I never would have foreseen this day.
See, I try to tell people how important it is to walk with somebody. I say everybody needs to sin, safety in numbers. And when I was trying to get somebody to walk with me, it was like pulling teeth. I tried to get Mobley to walk with me, and I don't know, it was like he was off in his own little world for 5 hours over, or for 4 hours over something we could have taken care of in 5 minutes if he'd have just stopped and listened. But go ahead, you took Camacho up there to Bridget's.
Well, Mobley was just hanging out, and it was really awkward because before that, my skateboard turned up, which I accused him of stealing. I found it, and Bridget said, no, that just showed up. She said, I'm really uncomfortable with all the things that are just turning up now that you're here. She said, what she's trying to prove that you didn't steal anything. And I said, I need you to just go. And he walked away. And Bridget went out for the night. And he was sticking around in his car. So I just said, just so you know, Mobley's here. Police showed up. Like 3 minutes. She showed up. And he was gone pretty fast. And she called the police twice. And then the other day, she said she got home from work and his truck was moved. She said it's still in Medford. She doesn't know where, and she doesn't want to know. He's not welcome on the property anymore. And then what really upset her most of all is, now I told her about Camacho before I took him up there. And she said, as long as it's not an issue, you know what I mean? As long as it's not something I have to deal with, that's fine. And she said, we pulled her off to the side and sat and told her everything about Camacho. She said it really, really disturbed her. And then he sent me a text talking about everything Camacho did, but it was totally off subject from what I asked him. And it was just really like, I've never seen him this way, dude. That's fine. I mean, if you want to tell a tweaker, I should really care less. That's your point. But Camacho saved his life. You know what I mean? Like, Camacho, I mean, a lot of people have issues with him, but he's tight family. Keep him in a certain place. So it was just a really, how things got turned so inside out, I don't understand. So Camacho really helped me work through this.
The cops
I asked him to stop. Huh?
The cops realized they could do whatever they want and nobody can do anything about it as long as they're doing it to the poor. Because then you have to get a civil lawyer because the cops won't press criminal charges on the cops. And then they get away with doing whatever they want unless you have enough money. And homeless people don't have the money. There's not enough free lawyers out there that care about civil rights for all the homeless people who are having their rights violated. I mean, Mobley should have never been up at Bridget's to begin with. He never should have had to. Mobley broke. Too many years of being the good guy and getting friggin', oh my god, the things that he went through. having the cops break his wrist, having them beat him up twice,
You know,
and they got away with it.
I told him after that after he got out of prison because I didn't want him to go to prison again that day. I don't know. I've done everything I can to be there for him, but he violated me in such a way. I don't know what happened, man. He kept trying to tell Bridget I was on drugs and the story wasn't matching. You know what I mean? I was like, if I was still getting high, you could get away with it, but I'm not. You're lying to the wrong people. He lied to them. He told them that Alex was selling the heroin, Sean. And Bridget just,
That hurts
I
me
can't
so
believe
much.
he said that. He said Alex was my heroin dealer, and this is after I've been clean off the dope for 2 years, off heroin for 2 years.
Alex, I don't know if Alex has ever seen heroin. Well, probably. Where he used to live, there was probably heroin sitting on the ground at some point.
Right?
But
So, yeah, I just looked at Mobley like, you're just holding, you're grasping at straws, man. Like, you're not even. He held me in the bathroom, and I said, why are you standing in front of the door, man? He said, I know what's going on, and I need you to understand you don't have to lie to me. He waited until I got really upset, and I was like, you need to step away from the door, man. You need to let me out. And after he accused Alex of that, I went outside. He was getting in the car to go to court. And the first time in my life, I opened up on someone, man, and I just started wailing on him. I started punching him and hitting him. And I was like, man, this is all you seem to hear. You don't hear me talking to you. And then he was offended because I hit him. And he stole my stuff. I don't know what happened. But this trip was even worse. So, yeah, I talked to Macho, and he helps me. I asked him, Macho, I don't need protection on the streets anymore. I need you to protect me from the streets. No more. So
it's
he's
sick
been
what
pretty
they
good at
did
that,
to us.
actually. I mean, no one would believe it if they saw it, but he's been keeping me away from the shit, even though he's deep in it. He's keeping it away. So I guess it was a good mental adjustment for me. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the mess that Mobley caused. I just don't. It was like he was on the shit. You know what I mean?
I thought that the
kind of
last time I was there too.
And he was acting like he was on it. It was just bizarre.
I was noticing that when I was in Boulder too. See, like I said, he was on tweaker time basically for 4 hours or so. He just was off on this and off on that and off doing this and off doing that. And it's all stuff that it seemed like either A, he was getting ADHD like phenomenally, or like he was trying to avoid me. And I don't know which it was because he kept on saying he wanted to talk to me. But it doesn't take 4 hours of running around doing errands to get that 5 minutes of talking done. And the stuff that he was wanting to talk to me about, by the time 4 hours was up, I was like, dude, are we going to talk about this or not? He's like, well, dude, we've been here all day. I'm like, oh my God, dude. Like, I'm following you and listening to you talk, and then you're going and you're talking to people, and then you're saying, wait here, I'm going to go run an errand, and you come back an hour later, and then you have to leave for another errand. Now, don't get me wrong, some of those errands were completely legit. Like a couple of them old veterans down there, you know them. Woody's down there still. But they end up, he did some errands for them.
Woody was still there?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
But they got a lot of old veterans down there right now that don't have anywhere to go, and they're all Vietnam era or older, most of them. So I mean, we're talking about dudes with canes and dudes with walkers, and he was down there running errands to the store for them. He didn't go get him alcohol that trip, but I'm sure if they'd asked him, he probably would have. He went down to the corner store and got him some like slushies and some of them little pocket pizzas and crap. But I mean, the whole thing is that he could have waited for 5 minutes, or I could have walked with him. You know, I mean,
Yeah. not like him to leave you like that. You're one of his closest friends. You're one of his most beloved people. So for him to let you hang like that is not, well, if it looks like a horse, sounds like a horse.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, a lot of these people that I know with families, when they needed help, they said, I need help. I've got a family. Someone has to help me. So it come up to me because everybody else has got family and they're doing the, well, I can't help. I have kids, you know? So I don't have kids. So I go and help the people with kids that need help because they got kids and can't do it by themselves. And then I know that those people aren't going to be able to help me later on when I need it because they got kids. So then later on, you know, they're butthurt about the things that I said, you know, on the internet. I'm like, I'm not blaming you. You have kids. I helped you because you have kids. I understand, you know. I mean, Miss Jerry, I helped her move 7 times because she kept on being in situations with men that she was not comfortable in. Now she kept on changing her story, you know. One minute she's wanting to move out of there because some dude threw something at her, so we get her moved out of there. And then a few months later, she doesn't like the boyfriend she's with because he's terrible. So the story about the first guy is that he did it on accident. He just talks a lot with his hands. And I should be doing more listening to you. I really should. I shouldn't be talking this much at you.
Why you call them and talk? I like talking.
Most people don't know I tell true stories. It's because they didn't get to know me.
I'm so sorry for people who didn't get to know you because it's been great knowing you. You're definitely one of my favorite people.
You
A
know,
lot of things that you're going through, like it's painful, or it's really painful to not be able to do more than writing a letter or like using my Facebook. Like it's painful knowing
ma'am,
that
you did.
Boulder County is like Gestapo. It's painful knowing that kind of stuff. Watching people like Mobley just take a shit. I think
Well, he did the same thing Rabbit did. He gave up. I mean, Rabbit hasn't had a job in over a decade. Rabbit,
Rose still says he loves me every now and then online. Check in on him. He just says, "Show me your picture. I love you."
yeah, that's Rabbit.
Last time I saw him, he was in North Boulder, sitting in a gutter. I walked by and I was like, "Is that Kirsten down there?" And I walked out and he's like, "Hey, oh my god, oh my god."
You know, a lot of people told me, you know what, Sean, I like you better than I like your brother. And then I noticed that they reward him for his bad behavior.
They're scared of him, Rob. They're scared of him.
I'm not scared of him.
Terrified. Well, I know that.
There's nobody on this planet I'm afraid of. It's one on one. I am the god of battle. If I can't beat you up, then I'll lose. That's not a problem. The major issue is that people won't come at me head to head. I'm not willing to throw the first punch. But once
Right?
the fight's on, you know, most of the time I'm still not willing to throw the first punch, or the second, or the third, or the fourth. I mean, somebody really has to be pummeling me for me to fight back.
When I first met you, I was with Red, and it was about a year later,
And you're what?
and I was with Red. Remember Red? Years
Yep.
and years ago?
I was gonna
And,
see him on the Virginia trip, actually.
oh yeah? You bought him?
No, I didn't get to. I was supposed to go up there and see Natalie first. I was planning on going there and then visiting like Sage and Red and Moose. Um, I was going to see Sage and Red on the way out because I would have had to drive as far north as Chicago and then head out from there in order to see Sage. So I was going to see Red and go to the National Air and Space Museum there. And then I also had planned on going to Yorktown, where basically the Marquis de Lafayette won the war for us. but I didn't get to do those things, and I wanted to see Moose too. Like, he invited me to North Carolina like probably 5 times in the last year, and every time I had to tell him I'm sorry, that's too close to Natalie's family. Not this year, but last year, while she was still alive. And then this year he's
Red
made the
has kept
invite.
my son.
Red's a good dad. Red is a good
I
dad.
know, that's the only reason I don't how that total work but a phenomenal father. I can't say anything about his father. So I'll just wait it out. I'm not going to call it a kid's strife. Instead, he needs to keep me out. That girl, whatever. I know he's dead. He protects that boy with his life. Keeps him happy, keeps him disciplined. So I do trust him as a father completely. Even if he's messing up, still being a good dad. So I can say that about him. But he said one time to me, I was like, said something about rabbit. He's like, I'm not scared of rabbit. I said, really? He said, no. I'm scared of the kid that rabbit beat up on his whole life and still here.
Yeah.
He said, that's the guy you gotta worry about, not rabbit. I was like, oh, that's the big fight there.
Well, when I scream, it's loud and it's scary. I understand that when I scream, it scares people. So there's a lot of people down on Pearl Street that didn't know I was capable because I never did. Because I reserved it for when it was needed. As far as fighting me, like, you remember Derek Apicata? Yeah, he assaulted me. He claimed he saw me drag Alicia Bollinger into the bathroom on Pearl Street. Like, for me, having to get somebody to go in with me to force the police to take a report, because they're not going to record it. They already know what'll happen. They would rather have a jury rely on their own words instead of on their recollection than what actually happened. And that's the problem with not having recording devices in any of these places. Like, they're allowed to do a lot of really mean stuff.
Yeah, I got charged. I have a terroristic threat charge right now.
Nice.
I had a gun, and I did not.
They said you had a gun?
Yeah, I should have exited somebody's house because I was in an RV, and a guy kicked the door in, and I told him, I said, look, I don't do well with dudes standing in the doorway, blocking me in places, so you need to step aside. Didn't move. I started calling for help. He didn't hurt me, but he was aggressive, and I was calling for help, and neighbor was like, shut up, bitch, blah, 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 She did that a couple times, different instances. And
Yeah.
I lashed out one night and I threw a bunch of eggs at her house. And she called the police and I stepped into the alley so that the police would show up and I was there. And I said, yes, I threw eggs. Gave me a ticket and they left. And then she called the police again and said that I had a gun and I said I was going to blow her head off. And I need target. I mean, it's all in the report, so I'm going to trial in March. Yep.
Well, normally I would tell somebody. Normally I would tell somebody that's all good because then they can sue that person in court afterwards. But I also know you're not a rich person.
They won't let me file a report.
That's what they're putting me through. Welcome to my world.
They won't let me file a report. They just laugh at me. Police said they weren't arresting me and they put me in the car. They did not look for a gun. They did not ask questions about a gun. And yep. So trial starts in March. So I'm going to Boulder in March. Back because my dad paid my bond. My dad paid for a lawyer. Thank God. And they're not real happy about me leaving since I'm not on bond. But I feel like if I stay here, I'm going to get in more trouble. And I don't know where it's coming from. I don't
Well,
where it'll come from next.
they kept on preventing me from being able to get an actual court date for me by having me go from one court date to another. Like 1 week I'd have to go to a court date, the next week I'd have to see my public pretender for that place, and then the next week I'd have to see the investigator, and that's just for one court date. And sometimes they do that twice in a month. And at the very beginning, I had Boulder and Clearview stuff going on. Like they literally kept on doing stuff to me over what they did wrong to harm me. And then they kept on refusing to take my report. And then they kept on assaulting me and shipping me out of county so that I couldn't report against their county. And then everywhere that I go, like they tell me, well, we can't do it, we can't do it. And then the other, like they say they couldn't do it because it's their own department, so they're not allowed. So I have to talk to an outside department. Well, the problem with Boulder is that you've got the Boulder police, and then you've got the sheriff's department, and they abused the shit out of me in the jail, and the sheriffs took part in it because they all assumed that I had killed Natalie. They were all talking about it when they took me into the jail, and they assaulted the shit out of me. Like what they did to my wrist, I was still having problems with that when I was in Clearview and after I was released from Clearview, and that was in February.
I saw that video a couple times.
No, you didn't get. Well, yeah, you did get to see that video. I posted up all three of them. They're on YouTube as we speak.
Yeah, my dad was like, "Why are you gonna let someone use your Facebook like that?" And I said, "Because sometimes you have to do these things, whether or not consequences. The consequences are very real, you know. But you can't just not help people because there's a threat of somebody else being an asshole.
Right.
You can't just silence somebody because there's someone big over there yelling, "Don't do that!" Like, "I'll put you in jail." Like,
well, there's a lot of people that were on my Facebook that were friends of mine before all this happened, and a lot of them were threatened and intimidated, and they told me that they were threatened and intimidated, and I took screenshots of a lot of them, but there was so much. I mean, a lot of those people I didn't ever go back to do that because we were so busy typing back and forth, and somebody else was typing back and forth with me, and now I feel bad for not going back and taking pictures of all that. I am trying to go back and take screenshots of as much as I can, though.
did you get a screenshot of the reason they shut the Facebook down this time?
No, but I took a picture with the camera.
Okay, because I took a screenshot of it.
Very good. We'll save that. That's all useful information. That's the issue that I keep having is people want me to be organized. I'm busy bouncing around from one place to another to another to another, just trying to survive. So, like, I don't have a place where I can sit down and organize this stuff and go through it all. Matter of fact, I don't have hardly any of my evidence. It's because I keep on moving around. I lost the phone with most of my evidence on it, um, in Nebraska. That was quite a few months ago. I lost a lot of stuff when I was up at Amanda and Lana's in Montana. They wanted to they told me that I was coming back, so I didn't need to take everything, and I really wanted to take everything so that I could show my lawyer, who didn't look anyway. But they talked me out of it. They're like, "Well, you're going to come back, and we're going to work on it from here, and we already, went down and helped you find a place for housing, and you're going to the doctors, and we've got all this stuff going on. You're coming back here." And I just got this sneaky suspicion that they were not being honest. But it was when I was on the bus from there that they really let it go, and they let it go hardcore. And I keep having stuff like that happen. Like, I knew not to trust these people because of what they pulled when I was in Virginia. That was the last thing I needed while I was in Virginia. I was dehydrated as shit. I really needed a friend, is what I needed. And everything since, like, I would have loved to come down and see everybody in Boulder, but I couldn't. Every time I went there, I got to deal with these fucking tweaker friends of Maddie's.
Well, got some good news. It might be good news. Whoever, I'm up for housing, but that big message me the other day, and he said my name came up, and I'm actually in a good state of mind to go ahead and take it. and I don't know if I actually want it, but I'm going to take it for the process and everything. So if I get a place that's accommodating, I'm looking for someone who will just kind of live there for me without, kind of covert. Because I'm going to be living up in Ned with Bridget for a while. Her and Alvin are getting divorced.
So you need the place so that you can establish. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was.
I don't want to be known as homeless, and I know that Ramos told me if I follow through with everything, I don't see why not have a free apartment. I mean, worst case scenario, I'll lose it. I'm no better off. I'm no worse off for losing it. But I don't want to just let a place like that go.
Yeah, I wish I had Ramos's number. I would have called him very first. Like as soon as those officers started harassing me. You have it?
I'll send
All right.
it to you.
Will you do me a favor and text it after we're done talking?
Yes.
All right. Badass.
He's been real good to me. He told me he said if I'm ever in Boulder because I need to do stuff, he said if you ever just need to get out of Boulder, he said call me. I went down to the courthouse one day to talk to Elizabeth, and he drove me all the way up to Netherlands. And he said, I will take you from Netherlands to Boulder anytime you need a ride. He said, there's no reason to get stuck anywhere or be scared anywhere.
Officer Ramos and Officer Moore are the reason that I don't judge all officers as badges. Yeah. Although Moore and Ramos are still badges and they still do badge things, they're also humans and they see us as human.
They do. I think they're aware of all these things that are going on. I think they just have more of a heart and they're trying to help a few people get away from it.
It'd be nice if Ramos was in a position where he could take down the whole department.
I don't think he would ever do that.
I don't think he would either. He's still a badge.
He's a cop.
He is a cop.
He's a certain kind of cop. And he's an old cop. He's going to be retiring soon. I think he wants to go down with a good conscience and a good record on the street and off the street. Yeah. Doing a good job.
I don't see how he could leave that job with a good conscience, knowing that people like French and Steinman are on the force.
Steinman won't look at me anymore. No, he won't even look my way. He totally avoids me. So I'm just going with it. It really made me uncomfortable for a while, and I yelled insults at him. Like, really? You're not going to look at me? And I thought, maybe I should just accept that and roll with it. So,
I hope he goes to prison for the rest of his life.
He will. He's going to do something so bad nobody can help him. And he'll be cast out on the street, and people are waiting for him out there. So.
I know that. They're waiting for the day his badge comes off.
I think a few people have bids on it.
Yeah. That's the worst thing is that he started training so many people in Boulder, and they're all getting away with it. And they all know who they can get away with doing it to. Why do you go after homeless people? Well, because they're the easiest ones to get away with doing this stuff to. What we're doing is not exactly legal, and since we're cops, we probably shouldn't get busted. So we should go after people nobody gives a fuck about.
Well, this is all part of the New World agenda. People are going to submit or they're going to pay. You're going to do what you're told, and there's going to be problems.
Go ahead.
Things are just, hell, the whole world's on fire. Like, sad, man.
Well, world's on fire. How about yours? That's the way I like it. And yeah, screw that.
You see pictures of these fires, right?
Yeah, I can smell them.
Oh, Sean. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm pretty sure it's laser beams and microwaves.
Now you sound like a tinfoil hat wearer. I see where you're coming from on that, though. We definitely have the technology.
They found a bunch of cows that were charcoal on the inside, and their hides weren't even burnt. Trees have been burning from the inside. Houses are level, but some of the shrubbery, no.
I was
They're just
noticing that
off.
you're talking about paradise.
That's
Yeah,
one
I
of them.
saw that. I saw that those trees were still green, but the
Yeah,
houses were
Rosewood
all
was the same
leveled.
way. Fire and Grease was the same way. It's everywhere. It's not just here in the States. It's everywhere. It's in the UK. I mean, I've been watching it closely as I can, and it's everywhere. It's something's catching the metal on fire. Anything that's touching the metal. It's bizarre.
That's not that bizarre. It's pretty easy to do. You know, Mr. Miller actually told us in high school how to burn all of Chapel, Nebraska down. Mr. Miller was our science teacher. He told us that it would take about 5 to 10 minutes and probably about an hour of preparation, and you could torch the whole town all at once if we wanted to. And then he methodically explained it to us scientifically how to do it. Now, Mr. Miller isn't really one of those people who's about violence or burning stuff down. He's a man of science, and he's a man who's about changing the world. But he needed to get the class's attention, and it was a good way to do it. But yeah, you can literally set a microwave. You can open up the innards of a microwave. It's got a fan above it, and that fan helps to distribute the radiation that's coming off of it. And like if you take that fan off, that stuff basically projects just right to the immediate area. You can actually do that with just a regular household microwave.
Wow.
But the thing with a regular household microwave is that you're not going to be able to light the whole town on fire with it. But it wouldn't take anything much bigger. I mean, you could. I think Eric was telling me about that guy who made a gun out of like 7 microwaves, and he shot his neighbor, and his neighbors continued cooking for like 15 minutes after that. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't actually seen the article on it, but if you had something like that, yeah, it might continue to work like that. I don't know. I've never shot anybody with a radioactive gun. Matter of fact, even when I had that gun, the spray bottle full of jalapeno juice, I didn't carry it around with me. I left it in the car. I didn't want to draw attention to myself, you know. But I was in jail with in Arapahoe County with Irish. Turns out Maddie Bowe was getting her drugs or her not heroin, her meth from him, and that's what she was distributing through Boulder. But he got busted, and he's still sitting in jail. I guess he's going to be going to prison for a bit. He found religion, I guess.
Becker went down. He's out of jail though, but he's in a lot of trouble. George went down. He just got out.
I saw George in jail. Matter of fact, I got it in between him and the guy that he wanted to whoop the shit out of because Starr was in the courtroom, and this guy was saying he'd like to, well, you know, he's been in jail for a bit. He's being a perverted male. George didn't like that, so I got up and sat between them in court.
I wish I could have met George straight.
Yeah. Well, you know, he was telling me in jail that, you know, he saw the stuff they did to me and heard the things they were doing to me in the jail, and he's like, dude, that stuff's not even right. He said, here's his exact words he said to me about it. He said, they're accusing you of being a druggie? They're accusing you of being a meth head and a drug dealer? Yeah, dude, you're not either one, I know, because I'm a meth head and a drug dealer.
He's another one of the few people that has been really good to me when I was out late and I was quitting. But your behavior changes after you make the decision. When I was quitting, everybody, and George was one of the few people I could go around and would keep trying to offer me stuff. I said, no, I just came to hang out because I didn't want anything. And he's like, oh, that's a first. He's like, you won't have it.
That's George. Yeah. Well, you know, for me, he offered me that shit like the whole time that he knew me. He was always offering it to me, and I never took him up on it. He said, "You know, Sean, every time I ask you that, I ask you just so I can hear someone tell me no."
Right. My daughter, he's out now. I talked to him yesterday. He was in one of them. I just wish we could be friends somewhere, but there's that thing.
Yeah.
And TJ is another one I got to shut out. Because when I went to visit, he's just, uh, he's not a mess, but his dresser drawers are full of the crap. And
Uh.
I can't not ask, so I can't go around anyone that has it. It's like, I just can't. And I'm grateful that I at least have that much understanding. Most people don't.
Yeah, that's something that would be nice for people to understand about me. I mean, I don't do drugs, you know? I'm not gonna do meth. I'm not gonna do heroin. I'm not gonna do friggin' cocaine. I've never tried coke or meth. Or coke or heroin. I did try meth for like 30 days in Nebraska. That's 30 days I slept through.
So you sleep.
Yeah, it puts me to sleep.
Well, I've been away from it for 6 months now. And I gotta tell you, Lovely has been one of the biggest factors in my life that made it difficult. It made it so difficult. It made it so difficult. And
See,
even
that's
when I was
something I
done
think.
with it, he was still pouring it into my life somehow. Not literally, but with his words and his actions, stealing my stuff and telling them that I must just space it out. You know what I mean? Like, I've never, I just, my heart's broken, man. I wish he could at least talk to me about whatever he's going through. But we've never been able to not talk about stuff.
Well, with Natalie, I was afraid that her and her family taking stuff wrong was gonna drive her to doing more heroin. I already knew that no matter what, the people that were in her life, she was gonna be doing it without me there. And for me, you know, it was a matter of it's her life, it's her choice. Let her live it. I wasn't expecting her predators to come after me after I left Virginia. And you know what? She even admitted on the paperwork that we didn't have a sexual relationship, and still her predators, the things that they did, and they went after me, like Tim Beeson, her ex-boyfriend, and Ted Bollinger, her dad. Like, these guys are actual sexual predators. These are actual people that actually do these things, and all these crazies who don't know what the hell is going on are protecting these monsters. And they destroyed my life to do it. Like, I don't have the do what?
They try to put everything they do on you.
Well, yeah, that's what society does. That's what
Mm-hmm.
people do. That's one of the reasons that I'm so interested in history, is so that I know what to expect. But the problem is, now I know what to expect. I know what to fear. I know what they're going to do, and there's nothing I can do about it. Knowing how people react and knowing how people act is very complicated, you know. And when people don't
Yeah.
delve in and find out, they don't know. They don't know the statistics of why these things happen to these people. They don't understand that most of the people in jail are there just because they're homeless and can't defend themselves in court. They get public pretenders. And then people are like, well, that's disrespectful to call them a public pretender. Well, nowadays, they don't even pretend to defend you. They want you to make a plea bargain, and they'll keep you locked up and stretching it out until you finally give in and give them their plea bargain, because those people don't want to do their jobs, especially if you're homeless. If there's a woman who's got kids and she's too broke for a lawyer, and you don't have any kids, you're a homeless person and you need a lawyer, well, she's going to want to win some cases, and she's going to have to trade with the prosecution Like, hey, if you give me that woman with 2 kids, you let her off the hook or give her, unsupervised probation. I'll give you this hobo, then we can both be happy.
Yep. Yep.
A lot of the guys.
This lady has got me in trouble. They move a lot of coke, and so the only reason I'm in trouble is because, well, you get it. I had no idea that was going on over there. I haven't seen any of that kind of activity really since I've been here, but it came together real quick when someone was like, oh yeah, maybe you'll blow, and I was like, oh my god, that's why she's getting away with this. They want to make a statement, they want to make a point. The last time I talked to my lawyer, he's like, oh, it's not like I told him this 100 times, but he just now seemed to hear me. I was like, well, I really need to get back to Colorado. And he's like, oh, so you don't live here? I said, no, I just got back because I was out there. And he's like, oh, well, I heard the judge and the Tino would really like to know that you're just going to go away. I said, well, yeah. That's what I was trying to say. I don't want to get involved with whatever's going on here. I don't care. I just want to get out of here again. And if I can't, well, there's going to be some more eggs coming. Because apparently, eggs are done. Way to make me look like a badass. The gun. It was a rifle, apparently.
I gotta plug my phone in for a couple of minutes, so I'm gonna hang up on you now. Is it alright if I call you back in a few?
Yeah, if you want to.
Yes, ma'am. Be safe, Christine. I
I
love
love
you.
you.
Be safe.
Talk to you next.